Hey, hello. Welcome to episode number 36 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choi. What's up? So this week something that I love is my eyes. I can see out of them. They're green. They look cool. I appreciate having them. Anyway, for everything about this show, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. Everything you need is on there. Social media, episode archive, links to listening options. That's peoplewelovepodcast.com. And the Instagram handle is peoplewelovepodcast. And of course, 5-star positive reviews on iTunes are greatly appreciated as well. So, today's guest is actor Joshua Mesnik. I asked him to send me a bio, and he did, and I wanted to share some excerpts from that. So this is from his point of view. Here we go. I grew up in a small beach town on the west coast of Florida and have been impersonating dolphins ever since I first met them in the water. Since then, I have stumbled my way in heels through a drag musical, led meditation workshops while wearing a leopard onesie, sang with a jazz band in an empty church, threatened the lead protagonist in a horror movie before being devoured by a mutant alien, skinny dipped at a music festival, taught improv to a group of lawyers in Topanga, co-led a primitive camping trip for 7 to 12-year-olds in Yosemite National Park, and I also emceed a wedding in India. So as you can tell, Joshua has had quite the interesting background. And we covered a bunch of that in his conversation with me, but he also tells me about the very special relationship he had with his grandmother, Sue Smith. We dive deep in this one, discussing some of life's big questions. But it's no question that Joshua's grandmother had a profound impact on all those who she crossed paths with. And I can see Joshua very much carrying on her creative energy and spirit. So let's just do this. Here's Joshua Mesnik. So it's good to see you today, Joshua Mesnik. How's it going?
It's going good, man.
What have you been up to today?
Beautiful day. I went gardening.
You went gardening?
I gardened.
Where do you go to garden? Not at your home?
Not at my home. It's a mentor of mine. She has this gorgeous home in Sherman Oaks. And she invited me to spend 2 hours watering probably over 10,000 different plants. It was a special experience because I haven't had the opportunity to do it yet. And I've always admired her garden. And today was the day for me to develop an intimate relationship with each and every plant, which pretty much just means nourishing them with water.
So she knew that you liked her garden, and she probably knows that you're a nice guy. As far as I know.
I think she knows that.
And she was taking advantage of you. And she's like, I'm going to put this guy to work.
That's exactly how it went down. She said, hey, can you come over? I just wanted to ask you something. And then I get there and she puts me to work.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It was a beautiful way to start my day. And, it was hot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was hot as fuck today.
It was hot. So I ended up just showering myself. So I was like a plant in the garden.
Yeah, you soaked yourself in water and you're constantly trying to stay cool as well.
Correct.
You were one with the plants.
I was one with the plants.
Yeah.
I was one of the 10,000.
Yeah, I'm going to be one with the plants later, but that may be a different plant.
Oh, your lungs will be one with the plant.
Yeah, that's a different plant. Anyway, so why don't you tell my audience about where you're from and your life story, and you could start from the hospital, and we can go from there when you were born.
From the hospital. Well, I was born yellow.
What does that mean?
So I had the jaundice situation. It was great. So basically my family had to rotisserie cook me in the sun when I was like a fresh baby.
So you needed sun. I don't know anything about jaundice other than it's like a discoloration.
It's a discoloration. I was yellow as a squash. I think it's a liver situation.
You're wearing a yellow shirt right now. It's hard for me not to think of that or smile for some inappropriate reason.
Yeah. That's funny. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I am wearing yellow. And maybe that's part of my identity since the youth.
Yeah, maybe. So tell me about your first tough moments on this planet.
Oh my God. Well, I love that question, first of all, because I've had a few of them.
Yeah.
That are very strange. So they're going to be fun to talk about.
Sure.
When I was 4 or 5, I had a very interesting experience of feeling like I was in a body and feeling claustrophobic about it. It's like I remember looking up, my mom was on the stairs and I looked up at her. And I didn't have a way to communicate it, but I remember the visceral feeling of being like, whoa, I'm alive. And it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. And I'm in a body and I kind of can't get out was literally the feeling I had. And that stayed with me, actually. That was since that age and then into my adolescence, It was an ebbing and flowing situation where I was uncomfortable in my body.
And it's not, and you're not saying in the sense like you're uncomfortable in your body because you're overweight or because you're a certain physical characteristic. You just, your soul, your personality, your consciousness is not comfortable. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to put this into words for you.
Well, so basically it's like, all right, so real quick, like hold your hand out and then focus on your middle finger.
Yeah.
On the tip of your middle finger.
Yeah.
Do you feel any sort of pressure or tingling? If you just focus on it.
Yeah.
You feel that kind of just that sensation?
Yeah, I feel like the blood is just rushing straight up from my elbow to my middle finger, and I haven't done anything but look at it.
Okay, so like that feeling, I feel throughout my whole body in different intensities, in different moments. I feel it differently. But when I was a kid, it hit me pretty hard, and I felt what it felt like to be in a body, and I didn't really know what to do about it, and it made me feel uncomfortable.
Did you want to be in a different body? No, it was just more about being a human.
It was just the feeling, like, and it was a feeling that I knew. It was like knowing the feeling wouldn't go away was part of the claustrophobia.
Yeah.
It was like, no matter what I do, I'll always have this feeling, this sensation of being alive. And something about that was claustrophobic to me.
Yeah.
And so I went through a lot of years, and this is why it's a challenge. I went through a lot of years trying to either numb that feeling, try to get out of it, try and make it feel more comfortable. And I developed these twitches or tics in my body where I would twitch my hands, I would twitch my face, people call it, there's the extreme version of this is Tourette's, right?
Yeah.
I had like a moderate form of Tourette's, mild to moderate. But it was my way of dealing with that feeling. And I have a feeling that if there was a dialogue about this, I'm sure there's something that's been written. A lot of people who have Tourette's and these different tics, it's just this deep layer of discomfort that they don't know how to deal with. Because every time I would twitch, it would alleviate it for a half second.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so that was something I dealt with through a lot of my youth.
And this didn't really start until that experience when you were 4 or 5. Well, that was maybe the first time a symptom or whatever.
That was the first time it showed itself, right? And then what happened, and I guess part of what connects us here today, the tendency to twitch, it was a big release of energy every time I would twitch my hand or shake my head or screech and make noises or flex my belly, all these different things I would do. And I was lucky enough to then find in high school opportunities to move that energy or to have a twitch that was actually creative or physical, like a sport, or like singing, or like, I did theater. So like expressing my creative energy, it was like twitching, but like positive. It wasn't self-destructive.
So yeah, it seems like you had creative outlets, you had physical outlets, you had like your mind was maybe more occupied in some ways.
Yeah, and then the feeling of being alive was less stressful.
Yeah. And
then it felt good to be alive. It felt good to be in a body. I felt better as a human.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So why don't we go back? So when you first kind of realized you had these strange sensations, did you tell your parents about it? Were you able to articulate this to other people at some point? How did they all react to this? And was it like a thing that really messed up your daily life on a regular basis? Or was it more like something that was just like a little weird challenge that you had to deal with? Or was it a major disruption?
It was almost debilitating.
Damn.
In fact, it reached a point where I think this was like 6th grade, where my mom kind of sat me down and she's like, look, we might not be able to travel. We might not be able to go on a plane, because I was screeching. Like I was making really loud noises. And I was also at one point urinating and defecating myself because I was squeezing my abdomen so hard.
And how old were you?
That was 5th or 6th grade.
Yeah.
So I was like, what, 10?
Yeah, that's pretty old for that, of course. But it's not about that. This is a whole nother thing going. Did you go to doctors and
we went to a specialist in California, and he was like, don't eat milk, and I'm like, all right. So I drank almond milk for a few years. Of course, it didn't help. Now everyone's doing that.
Yeah, it sounds like this is some psychological or something else, or physiological? I don't know.
Deeper, right?
Yeah.
Deeper. Something I tie it, and I've reflected a lot on this, and I love talking about it because I feel like a lot of people deal with either a subtle or more intense version of this.
If you've experienced this, you're not the only one.
You're not the only one. And I'll tell you that for me, the medicine is creative expression. Moving that energy that wants to come through a twitch or a tick, moving it in a positive, exciting, healthy way.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. Sports, again, creation, writing, literally just like jumping up and down. Of course, having intimate relationships, where you can express yourself sexually. Sure. Anything that allows you to move that energy. And so that feeling of that deep discomfort that you feel in your body can move out of you, and you can feel like there's more of a flow in your body and you're not as stagnant or stuck.
And you didn't discover this and this epiphany or until later in life, it sounds like.
Yeah, I didn't really, because it just happened. I just kind of moved out of it. There was a point where I after my mom talked to me and she was like, look, we might not be able to travel. It kind of really hit me. I was like, oh, wow, like this could ruin my life if I don't get a hold of this. And so I remember for a while, I started sitting on the edge of my bed, and I did what I just did with you, where I would focus on my hands.
Yeah.
And I would focus, because that was the source of the tics. Was this
you were meditating before you even knew what meditating was, it sounds like, to some degree.
Well, it's true. And to me, meditation was just feeling what was already being felt all the time, but sitting with the feeling and not trying to get out of it.
Right.
So like, instead of feeling that feeling of aliveness in my hands and then trying to twitch my hand, I would just feel the aliveness in my hands and then breathe and then settle. And sometimes it would just twitch right away. Sometimes I could get like a minute, 2 minutes without a twitch. And then I had to develop that, and I practiced that. And then eventually that was one anchor that helped me kind of get out of that discomfort. And then, like I said, growing up, getting involved in sports and football and basketball.
That sounds like that stuff, the sports and creative outlets may have come later. What was life like for you when you were 8, 9, 10 years old in school and your family life? What were your interests? Were you a good student even at that point? Yeah, I was a decent, honestly. The way I got through school was cheating and like barely getting by. I got decent grades. Like, I was okay. They put me in one of those challenge classes, how I don't know if you had this in your school, but they have like, they section off a group of kids. Special ed or something? Special ed. It was kind of like X-Men. It was good special ed. It was like, we did pretty good on our IQs, but see, in Florida, they isolated us in this old mildew filled trailer, basically. And this is in what town of Florida? Naples, Florida. That's where I grew up. So we were, kind of set apart from the school. And this was the time of my life when I was going through these twitches. So it was an interesting experience being like claustrophobic in my body and in this like trailer that I was going to class in, which was so tight. But like my grades were okay, and I had pretty decent friends. But I'll tell you what, the highlight of my life in those years was spending weekends with my grandmother, and she had this gorgeous 130-year-old home on the coast, like right on the sand. When you're in Naples. And if you've ever been to Naples, there's this like kind of beautiful pier. Years ago. You've been to Naples years ago? Years ago, yeah. Yeah. So have you been to the pier? I don't know if I must have been 9 years old myself years ago. It was a while ago. What did you think? I mean, it was nice. I remember Naples and what else is around there. It's not far. It's not too far from Tampa, right? It's 2 hours south. 2 hours south. I mean, I think I did that drive. Yeah. On the western coast. Yep, on the west coast, gorgeous, right on the Gulf. It's a small town, small-ish, but yeah, my grandma had this incredible house right on the beach, and that's where I would spend most of my time. Was at that house on the weekends. Like, that was kind of my getaway. And how far was that from where you grew up? Where your house? 15 minutes. So that's super close. And so you must. And she lived there your whole childhood. So you went there all the time from ages what to since I was a baby, like a little toddler till I was in my 20s. Yeah, that's funny. That must be part of the connection, because I have very similar relationship with my grandmother, who actually lives in California now. Okay. And as of recording this, I visited her yesterday. Aww. And she's going to be 99 and a half. Well, she's going to be 99 in November. She's 98 and pretty much 3/4 right now. Wow. She was episode number 1.
She was on it?
She was episode
I'm
number
gonna
1.
listen to that.
She was episode number 1. But yeah, so she lived in, I'm from Long Island. She lived in Queens in New York City. And I would go there on weekends a lot as a kid growing up. And then eventually we both found ourselves in California. She in the early 2000s and me a little bit after that, moved out here. So I've been visiting her on weekends. Not every weekend, but like similar relationship and similar for sure.
And aren't grandmas the best?
Ours, it sounds like. Not everyone's.
Not everyone has the
No,
best.
they don't. And I hear that.
Have you heard some horror stories, grandma horror stories?
Not horror stories, but people just don't always have close relationships with their grandparents, and it's not always anyone's fault or not always a reason. Sometimes you just can't, for health reasons, be close to,
right.
If they're dealing with things. But
right, you can't.
yeah. I mean, she tells me about her friends sometimes that don't, that their grandsons don't call or don't visit as often as I do, and I don't even feel like I do that much. But you were telling me about your grandmother.
Yeah.
Tell me about those times visiting her house.
So her house, so my grandma was the first person to...
Sue Smith.
Sue Smith is her name. Sue B. Smith. And then her husband's name was John A. Smith. So they would get stopped in the airports because like during the time of the Soviet spy situation, like they were
Sounds made up.
What?
It sounds like a made up name.
Oh yeah, it sounds fake. Sue B. Smith and John A. Smith. It's like, okay, let's figure you all out. There's no way this is real. But that was them. My grandma was the person who really encouraged me to be a creator, an artist, a creator. So basically her house was like our playground. We would have plays all the time. Me and my 3 cousins, my sister and my 2 cousins, 3 of us, 4 total, 3 sister, 2 cousins. Very good. Got that cleared up. We would all get together and we would create. We did Camelot. We did Gone with the Wind. We created our own improvised like shows and we would show it to our family. And my grandma was a big supporter of that. She would always encourage us to like make posters and sell tickets and get the family together to watch. And, that was since I was like from 5 years old to once I graduated high school.
That kind of thing was always going on.
Yeah, we were always there.
That's amazing. Was it your grandmother? Because that kind of got the idea in your heads to do this, or was it just kind of organic? You guys all loved movies and plays and stuff like that. Where did it start?
It was like both. I mean, we would go to Blockbuster and we would rent 9 movies and watch it in 2 days. Like we would just absorb content. And then my grandma, me and my cousins and my sister had great chemistry. So every time we'd be together, it was like a storm of energy. And the joy of just being together, I think naturally created these moments. But there was definitely a holding. Like my grandma held it. Like she held the vision. She knew that this is who we were. We were all creative kids, and she knew that it was important to nurture that. And it was very obvious that she took the active role in supporting us.
In what way? Was there ways that she did that other than just providing a space for you guys to do that? Did she say, all right, we're going to do a play next month. What do you guys want to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you guys notes on your performances. Like how involved was she in the actual productions?
It was, it's... Yeah, she was like our DP.
Yeah, I'm taking her, what was her role?
So how do I describe this? So basically, okay, so like let's say...
She got back end.
That's right. Yeah, she did a lot of the accounting.
Right.
Handled the actors and emails.
Massaged their egos.
That's right.
Crafty, of course, she's grandma.
Crafty contracts. Now, let's say my cousins and I wanted to start a baseball team, which we wanted to do. We wanted to start a baseball team and make not only a team that would have like games and play somebody. We didn't know who we were going to play, but we just wanted to play somebody. But we were going to make a story out of the team. We were going to make a play and a movie or something out of this team that we were starting. So my grandma goes to Sports Authority. It's kind of like the equivalent of Dick's. And
I know it.
Okay. She buys us all the equipment we would need for the sports team. And we get like the Hanson kind of long sleeves. We get our cleats, we got our bats, and she dropped some change to like make that happen. So that was like one example of her just totally financially supporting our project.
I have questions about this project.
Yeah, me too. We all did.
We all did. So
yeah,
okay.
It went nowhere because we got all of our items and we realized that, first of all, we don't have enough people to fill out a team.
You guys are like the Sandlot. You got 8 guys.
We had 4.
We had 4.
Oh no. No, it didn't go anywhere. But so like that's one example, just like how she would just unconditionally support.
The unconditional is the right word.
Any idea, right?
It didn't sound like you. It sounded like you guys weren't sure if you wanted to make a movie or play an act or be an actual sports team.
Yeah, it was.
You wanted to be a sports team, but like make like a 30 for 30 about it in like real time. Like make the documentary, the story of the season as it's happening.
Yeah, man. We just wanted to do something.
Yeah,
and every day it was something new. And every day, whatever that idea was, pretty much Grandma had our back.
Yeah, it's just funny because, again, you're making me think of myself. And I'm always working on projects, creative projects with my grandfather and my grandmother, especially my grandfather, whether it was like building some game or painting or doing photography, because he did those things as well. And my grandmother, too. So it was always the creative stuff with the grandparents.
Was it just you?
And my sister as well.
And your sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
It's formative when you get to be unconditionally supported to create. It really gives you freedom to make anything that you can dream of.
Yeah.
And just connecting this to like, I guess, current reality, like I'm learning that when I don't feel unconditionally supported, like when I feel like I don't have enough, like what I need on a base level to survive or like pay my rent, as an actor, it can be, check to check sometimes, like knowing whether or not that's going to happen. It's a lot harder to like be working on the screenplay or to be doing improv at night with friends or to like be jamming. You know what I mean?
You got to be focused on your immediate, you got to prioritize.
It's true. So like, the grandma energy was essential for me. And I think is still essential. Like, how can I be my own grandma in my life? That's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, how can
I'm using that in the promotion of this podcast, just so you know, of this episode.
Like, how can I be grandma right now? Like, what would grandma do? And then how can I embody that?
WWGD.
What would grandma do? Yeah, man. So that's what I sit with. Yeah.
I think the feeling that you had and that I had, doing creative things as a kid and even playing sports and just enjoying life and just releasing of that energy. I think that's what keeps us going is looking for that feeling and enjoying being creative. I think that helps get us through our day jobs or gigs that we don't love or responsibilities that we have to take care of that we would rather not, because we know that doing those things is, hopefully a means to an end towards, focusing eventually on our own creative endeavors and doing what we love the most.
Yeah, man.
Whatever that may be.
And I honestly, when I look back to my childhood and, we are creative beings. We were born creative. I think every kid is creative. I think every kid has a creative spark, whether it's literally just them being a wild child and running around. That's creativity, just dancing in the middle of the sand, all alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think people think of creativity, they think, it's studio arts or something like that, but it's not just that. Solving a problem involves creativity.
Even the way you express yourself, like your personality, if you are just that person who's unique, that's almost, you're creative in how you are, and so like, I think part of why I came out here to LA and this urge that I have to be a creative person, it's just an urge back to my natural self. It's just me realizing that like, I'm already creative. So I need to form my life and build a container around me that supports who I already am, instead of trying to fit myself to a container that exists, whether that's a career path, whether that is, a means to an end that, I've worked in education. I worked with nonprofit management and working to build a system for educating youth. I used to teach high school in New York City.
That's awesome.
And it was an incredible experience, and it still is a part of who I am. And there was a shift in my life when I just felt that like, wow, this is a dream job. I was building this incredible program with this amazing team, working with incredible young people and kind of feeling like I was on the leading edge of something really special. It was a holistic education program that we had embedded into a public school.
Yeah.
And it felt like groundbreaking and it felt important, and it is still going strong. But at the moment, what occurred in my heart and what made me shift, I moved out here in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a shift that occurred where I finally identified why I was so uncomfortable in my dream job. That I thought was my dream job at that moment.
Because you thought it was.
And I was like, oh, great, dream job. And yet something is irking me in my belly. What is that? And what it was that I was trying to fit myself into a path. And I was not creating a path that then who I was would naturally fit into. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I do.
Yeah. So like, and that path was a beautiful path. That job was a beautiful job. But there was part of me that wasn't being expressed.
Yeah, well, it's not that perhaps it wasn't the most creative position, but even though there was, I'm sure, creativity needed, to do the job itself.
Oh,
but it wasn't.
tons.
It's not the pure personal expression that other, outlets can be.
It felt like there was a dimension of who I was that just wasn't being invited to join my day. Like I would live a day, I would work, I would do all the things I did in that day at the office, at school, teaching. And there was just part of me that was just kind of sitting in the back, wanting to participate and just wasn't having a chance.
How long were you in New York for doing this?
About two and a half years, give or take, including like time on and off.
That's a nice. Where did you live in New York?
And I lived in Manhattan.
Wow, that must have been quite something. I mean, was that the first time you'd ever been to Manhattan or to New York City?
I did an internship there. I used to be pursuing advertising. I was a copywriter.
Yeah.
So I did an internship there. But no, this is my first time living and like growing roots in the city. And I moved there in 2015.
And when your grandmother, you said, passed?
Mm-hmm.
When did she pass?
In 2016.
Okay, so you had moved away before.
So here, I'll tell you the story.
Yeah, what did she think about you moving to New York and all that? And I want to hear more about your New York life, and then we'll.
Yeah, this is great. It's great, and this will really help you really understand the role my grandma played. Because like
I feel like I understand a lot already, so I'm definitely looking forward to even getting deeper.
Yeah, so like like when I said, okay, she bought us all the T-shirts and the stuff to make our baseball team. Like that's a very surface level layer of how she would support us. So like. I was reaching a point, like I was saying, of discontent in my life. And I would talk to my grandma regularly. She's my best friend.
And this is how old?
Probably 24 or 25.
Oh, so this is, okay. So this is not too long ago.
No,
you just said she was your best friend.
She is my best friend.
She is your best, and has she always been your best friend?
Yes.
And that's never been in question. And that's always what you've like thought of her as. And
well, yes and no. I mean, it's almost like how someone is so important to you that you don't even like someone would ask you like, who's your best friend? You would say someone, but really if you had a moment to think about it, you'd be like, oh wait, no, like I spend the most time with this person and they are actually the most important to me. There were different times where my grandma was my grandma, but I think I reached a point in my 20s where I was like, wow, this is my best friend.
I did talk about that to my grandparents as well and told them, I see you guys at this point, you're more as friends and people I enjoy spending time with versus like grandma. And then I've called them by their first names for probably a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Interesting. I never called my grandma Sue.
Yeah.
Like I would always just call her grandma.
Yeah.
That would have been an interesting step to take in our relationship. Like that. No, really, that'd be a big step into a deeper, almost friendship. I feel.
Yeah.
To call her by her first name. Yeah. Yeah. But okay. I was saying, yeah, it was 2015. I was feeling a little bit stagnated in my job. I started taking acting classes.
And you're this is in Florida still?
This is in New York City.
And you're already in New York, okay.
Yeah, and this is I was working with a nonprofit and I was building this education program and teaching it. And it was amazing. And it was also, there was something missing, right? So I'd tell my grandma this and she started noticing this, first of all, this discomfort, this discontent. And then she started noticing my actions to get out of that, which was taking acting classes, going dancing, kind of expressing myself more creatively in the city, taking magnet theater improv, musical improv, just playing around, and she noticed it. So there was just one, and I would, I'd been telling her, I really feel like there's something needs to change. I'm not really sure what it is. I feel like I should move. I feel like I should pursue acting more seriously or pursue something creative more seriously. And in fact, I didn't even consider acting as a career path until the end of my time in New York City. It wasn't even on my radar as a career path. It was just something I knew I'd like to do, but I never really thought that I could actually move to Los Angeles and actually make money acting.
What sparked this, and why not pursue acting even in New York? Just 'cause obviously there's more opportunity here, but
well, yeah, I mean, working a full-time job, it's not just like a waiting job where you could just kind of check out. It was like a job that, you're part of a ship that's about to sail into the ocean.
Yeah, here actors work at night. Their day jobs are at night.
Okay,
a lot of them. Yeah.
So look, I could have probably pushed it and gotten acting work. It just wasn't the timeline wasn't really there. Like it felt I needed to get out of the time commitment I was in to put all of my focus.
Of course, yeah.
So anyway, I had this conversation with my grandma, and I felt in hindsight, I feel that this was her kind of handing a certain mantle and torch to me over the phone. I think she could feel that she was kind of dimming. She could feel.
How old was she?
She was late 70s.
Okay.
I think 79. I could be wrong. But I just, my grandma was very intuitive. She just knew when things would happen. She would just know, this person's going to call me. Or she would just know, I'm going to have, this is going to be a challenging day today. So pray for me. Like she would say things like that. She just kind of knew things.
Does she know what people need to hear sometimes, or what people want to hear, or and what to say and how to say it in the right way? Like it seems like maybe she's that type of person who.
I love that. Yeah, like she's the kind of person you'd be standing in line at CVS, and she'd be behind you, and she would like look up at you, and she'd be like, "My dear, your eyes are just gorgeous. You have gorgeous eyes." And this person would be like, "Oh, wow, ma'am, thank you. I really appreciate that." She's like, "Oh, you are welcome, and I mean it. I mean, the way they glisten in this light, and gosh, you should
get her out here.
You should get
I miss
some."
Her.
Really, I mean, that was the kind of conversation she would strike up, and you can bet your ass that's exactly what that person needed to hear in that moment. And you can bet your ass that those words affected that person's day. And
sure.
So, and she took the opportunity to extend that kind of hand and that kind of lending of kindness all the time. She was committed to love, fully committed.
Damn.
Fully committed.
That's cool. So did you move to LA the next day?
So I got on the phone with her, and she just basically, she kind of sat me down over the phone. I could feel her, like, if you visit grandma, she kind of like sat me down. If I was doing, kind of like, "Oh, grandma, like, hey, I'm going to go." She's like, no, sit down. I have something to tell you.
Yeah.
She kind of sat me down over the phone, and she's like, and, I was expressing my discontent a little bit, and she's like, "Josh, I think it's time. I think it's time for you. It's okay to move on. It's okay to take a step into a new direction." Something along those lines. But I remember her saying specifically, "I think it's time." And that, to have her permission at that level, because she was a big supporter of my career that I was building, but to feel her also support me in leaving that career was really big for me. And shortly after that, my good friends from college, from the sketch comedy troupe I was in at Florida State University, they hit me up and they're like, "Hey man, we're getting a house out in Los Angeles."
And you did not know that was coming at all?
No, I didn't.
And that was how long after this grandma conversation, you say?
Gosh, maybe a month.
Okay, well that's soon enough to.
Oh yeah, it was very clear in this moment when I got invited to live in this house that, all right, got grandma's permission. Here's the opportunity. Take it.
What were your thoughts in between the conversation with grandma and then the opportunity presenting itself to move into this house? Were you kind of like, maybe I'll move to LA, or maybe I'll stay in New York? I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm thinking about it, or I'm just kind of going through the grind at work. Where were you at that, in those 30 days?
Man, it was gut wrenching.
I bet.
It's kind of like, it's kind of like realizing that you have to leave your girlfriend or you have to leave like your beloved partner to do something across the world type thing.
Yeah.
I loved my team. I loved my job. I loved the kids I was teaching. I was in love. And yet I knew that I had to break up that relationship.
Right.
And I had to end it. So it was like, hell yeah, I can't wait to move to LA. And oh my God, how am I going to say this? You know, how is this even the right thing? So there was a big gestation period of me finding in myself the courage to even tell them. Like there was actually like a couple months that I knew I was moving and I couldn't even muster the courage to initiate that transition process.
It must be harder because you're also working in this noble pursuit, this like, you know, a good thing that you're working on. It's not like you're just, you know, not that there's anything wrong with, you know, being on an assembly line in a factory, but you're really, you know, in that type of position, helping people and, you know, who are really in need of help and doing a good thing and maybe even doing something groundbreaking. So, you know, that you said you created this school?
Well, no, we did not create the school.
You did not create the school.
That'd be next level. No, we basically created a program. It's called the Question Project.
Oh yeah, created the program within the school.
Within the school. So,
but you were part of the original creation, so that's also, you know, personal investment as well that you're conflicted about.
It was a big part of my life and still is, you know. But I'm of course not employed by them anymore. But it was like a breakup. But my grandma's push, basically, and this is just to kind of tie this is the real influence that she had in my life. She had a vision for me. She saw me. She understood me. She saw who I was, and then she lifted me up to that vision. So like, even if I like got into some stuff that was kind of like, you know, irresponsible, or I was telling her that I had this ambition to, I don't know, like make money doing something that really isn't my thing, she would hear me, and then she would still hold me to like, well, Josh, but you can do anything you want. Are you sure you want to do this? You know, you're such a creative, you have so much potential. Are you sure that this is the route you want to go down? And she would hold me to that since I was a kid. And this moment where she talked to me, it was the ultimate moment where she was expressing that like, Josh, I know that you have a dream and that it's time for you to follow your dreams. I hold you to that vision. I know you can achieve what you want to set out to achieve. So go do it. And you have my support.
What did she do for a living? Did she have did she have a career? What was her field of work?
You know, she didn't really have a career. My grandfather worked in the government.
Yeah.
He was in Army intelligence work. So, you know, her job was to hold down the fort.
Did she have a lot of creative outlets herself?
Yeah, she was a poet. You know, she's a writer.
I got you.
You know, nothing published.
But
gosh, you know, it's funny talking about like what she did for a living, because like I have so much reverence for her, and I'm realizing that she didn't really work.
But that doesn't mean anything, and that's nothing to be ashamed of or look down on. Her impact was, you know, can be seen in probably you and your family and all the people that have crossed paths with her in her life.
And now I'm feeling that so strongly, like in this reflection, like, wow, like, yeah, my grandma didn't really have a career, but she had such impact on so many people. And, you know, when she passed away and we had a funeral, we decided to have a very intimate, like family funeral, just literally like 8 of us. But we realized that if we were to send out this kind of, you know, to tell the people in Naples that grandma had passed away,
they'll storm the gates.
We realized that we might have like hundreds of people show up to this funeral. And that just speaks to who she was. Yeah. Yeah,
for sure. It sounds like to me she was like not just mom and grandma and those roles. It seems like she almost sounds like a motivational speaker, a football coach. She sounds like somebody who had great, you know, emotional intelligence and intuition when it comes to what other people are thinking and feeling. But it almost sounds like she also had like a way with language and a way to like a mastery of like getting people to believe things or getting people to believe things about themselves. like really like the art of even like persuasion, but not like in a way to, not in a conniving way, not in a way to take advantage of them, in a way to get them to believe in themselves and pursue what's, best for them.
So, and you're right. And one thing that was so interesting about her is when my grandfather would go away and work, he would go to other countries and he would be away for sometimes, I think, months. She developed, I guess, a healthy addiction of reading. So if you were to go to her house, and we also had a house in Georgia, it was filled literally with like thousands of books, and she read all of them, and she was one of these people who would just go through, and the range of what she would read is all across the board. She was very spiritual, and she was spiritual in a time where it wasn't like Instagram famous.
Sure.
Like she was spiritual, and in a way that wasn't superficial. She had a connection to a feeling that life is a divine orchestrate, a miracle. Life is a miracle.
Right.
That's what my grandma, that was like, if you were around my grandma and you could ask her, that's pretty much the vibe, is like, hey, honey, life's a miracle. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I have faith that something special is going on.
That's kind of almost more of the feeling that I had, like not exactly that positive and that overwhelmingly positive outlook, but when you talked about the feeling of yourself being like 4 or 5 years old and the feeling of like claustrophobia and not like being part of your body, I felt almost more like amazed by it. Like I couldn't believe I was like, couldn't believe I existed, and I didn't really know what it meant, and I wondered like that there's such a thing as me, Adam Choid. Who am I? What is, like, I can't, like, I hear myself thinking in my head, but what does that mean? I remember like thinking about my consciousness on a deeper level, even when I was like 4 or 5 years old, just being like in awe that like I exist. Like it was weird in a weird way that you were describing, I think, but not in quite the uncomfortable way. More in the like, whoa, this is interesting. Who am I? I can't believe this is weird.
I relate so much. Have you ever woken up and like in the middle of the night, like right from a dream, or like first thing in the morning when it's like when you're just waking up and there's just that feeling? Have you ever had? I feel like I'm the only person, but you might relate. And it just, when you just started talking, it reminded me of that feeling that I have, which is like, whoa, like I'm alive.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's just pure like, oh, what?
Yeah. And it's not, it's not a negative feeling. No, and it's not a positive feeling. It's just a like, what is this? What am I? What is this?
What is going on?
What is this voice that's in my head telling me I got to go make coffee now? What is this weird? My friend always says, we're just on a ball that's spinning 67,000 miles an hour around the sun. And when you think of it like that, other things that may seem important seem less important.
We're on a
rock spinning 67,000 miles per hour around the sun.
We're on a planet in the middle of space.
Yeah.
It's true. We're just hanging out here. It's like a big cosmic cruise ship. Everyone's, some people are partying, some people are working the decks, some people, we're all going somewhere. There's a trajectory to this whole thing. And I guess you could waste it all by just getting drunk every day, or you could, go dancing every night and meet the love of your life and have a story. I mean, the cosmic situation is definitely a big part of my consciousness. Like I feel like I'm always kind of returning to this feeling. Like, whoa, even it's just sometimes a pause. It's not even like this big complex thought. It's just kind of like this, kind of like taking a inventory of where I'm at and being like, okay, first of all, you're on a planet.
You need to remind yourself of that.
I mean, it sort of puts things in perspective.
Like I said, 67,000 miles an hour around the sun.
It puts everything in perspective, man. You burn toast on, and you had this big plan to eat the sourdough toast, and it's the last piece you had, and you're about to lather it with almond butter, and then you burn the crap out of it, get all upset. Oh, wait, I'm on a planet. All right. I guess I'm a little less upset. Yeah. I still want the toast, but like, I don't know. It shifts the game.
Yeah.
It changes the feeling of the experience.
I think we all need to just shift our perspectives sometimes and have our perspectives I guess, challenged or shifted in one form or another in order to have fresh eyes on yourself, which is the hardest thing to have, is having fresh eyes on yourself. So what about when you came to LA? What was life like then and up to today? And you could tell me what you're working on and what you want to work on.
I love it.
And we can get to like what is, I mean, ideal. Like I often ask guests, like, what would be, you know, your ideal job or goal that you could accomplish? Like, is it winning the Oscar in the big movie? Is it writing and directing your own movie, or is it not one thing? But we'll get into all that. Why don't you tell me about, you know, getting to LA and where we're at today?
I love it. And I love sharing. You know, I appreciate it. It's fun to reflect on all this. Because I really feel like, so basically I feel like I feel like we all are, but I feel like I'm living a big improvised movie called my life.
Yeah.
I feel like I run into people and I have experiences and I have these opportunities and moments that are just too good to be unscripted. Like they're too good to not be part of a story. It's too perfect. And when I moved, so I packed up a car. I bought a car in Naples, in Miami. And then I drove out here from Florida. I had a great road trip.
By yourself?
Yes, by myself. I took about a month to do it. Mm-hmm. I had some amazing friends along the way.
That's fun.
So here's what I'm talking about. So I had a friend who had this Airbnb in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He hit me up and he's like, hey, want to come stay out here for a few nights on your road trip? I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I go out there. Him and his girl go to dinner. I find some really cool kind of gathering in this like cafe. And I guess you could call it downtown Santa Fe. It's a very small area.
Sure.
I go to this little gathering. People are dancing. There's like tea and it's kind of this like, you know, hipster sort of vibe. And there's this lady there and she approaches me, comes right up to me, looks me in my eyes. She's like, you're going to LA. I'm like, and I just walked in this place.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I am. Are you following me? What is going on? How do you know this? And, you know, she's basically like, look, I just know things.
Well, I can respond to this perhaps myself. I don't know what you looked like or were wearing at the time, but I think there's two things at play here. One is probably you probably did not look like a local, whatever that entailed, because you're not from Santa Fe. And, you know, you're a good looking dude. You could be an actor. You know, I could see it. You know, you got the look for it. You got the mojo. So I think, you know, those two factors probably went into her decision.
Well, maybe.
Plus, she was a psychic, you're going to tell me, right?
Well, you know, maybe she did have a business card that said psychic on it. I will not deny or affirm the truth of that statement. But she came up to me, told me, I'm going to LA. And I said, yes, I am. And she handed me a pamphlet to a festival that was happening in LA. And she's like, you should go to this.
A film festival?
No, it was a music festival.
Okay.
And this festival was called Portal to the New Earth. And I'm like, that sounds way far out. I'm excited to go.
You didn't even know what it was. You're like, I'm in.
Sign me a Portal to the New Earth? Absolutely.
Anything that sounds borderline insane, you're going to be like, whoa, I like that.
Oh, dude, I'm going to jump into the portal. I'm going to go to a new Earth and life's going to be great. Like, I'm down. Sign me up. So I complete my road trip. I get to LA. The festival's happening a few days after my landing at my house. So I pack up my things. It's like a 3-day festival in Joshua Tree. Very small, very intimate.
What kind of music is it?
It is, gosh, I guess you could call it psychedelic tribal house.
Okay, that would have been my guess.
Yeah, that would be.
If I had multiple choices, I would pick all of the ones that will fit with the so-and-so, and I would have checked off those boxes.
That and Romanian folk music.
Yeah, maybe not that one.
It was, look, man, these, you know, it was way, way, way. It was like being, you know, that scene in Star Wars where they go into the cafe and there are all the different aliens kind of playing the instruments and there's weird music playing that you've never heard. And, you know, some guys are hitting a hookah, but one of the dudes is like a noodle and the other guy has 9 arms and the other dude's like a sloth. That's what I felt like I was walking into. The people there, the situation, the music was all new to me. And it was a universe and a crowd and a vibe that I'd never been exposed to. And so I was blown away by the whole experience. It literally felt like I went through a portal to a new earth, but the portal was just this change in perspective. And then the new earth was just a new life. It was my new life. That's how I interpret it. And I met these people there. I met some friends. They were like, the festival was ending. They're like, hey, you want to join us to another festival? I'm like, sure, let's do it. And then they're like, all right, well, we need you to drive. And I was like, oh, I see what's going on here. Okay, let's do it. But I didn't know. Like they seem cool, but you know.
Yeah.
So they hop in my car. We go out to Deep Creek Hot Springs, which is this hot springs out in the desert. It's out near, I think, Hemet. It's about an hour and a half.
I know where that is.
Okay, you know Deep Creek?
No,
you know
but I know that. I know where that is.
It might be a little, I could be wrong. It might be a little more north, west of that. But
near Idlewild and Hemet, like not too far from that area.
Possibly. It's tucked in the mountains there.
Yeah.
So we go out there. We spend a night in this, basically in the middle of nowhere in a crevice. And in that crevice was hot spring water. That day that we had spent out in the hot springs, this was on our way to another festival.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I was like, when's the festival?
It's after this, right? So we're going to Shakti Fest, but we got to stop in the hot springs.
Sure.
When I was sitting in this hot springs, these two people come hiking down a mountain. One of those people were naked.
Yeah.
They hike down this mountain. They approach the Deep Creek. They jump in the hot springs with me. I get to talking. And we vibe. We're getting to know each other. It's a cool connection. We connect on Facebook. These people now, right now, from where I'm speaking right now, those two people that I met that were hiking are like my best friends in the whole world. And the things that we've gotten into together, the way that my life has been affected by them is off the charts. Like I would be living a whole different kind of life if it weren't for these people. And the way that our relationship was like solidified months later, after I'd met them in the middle of the desert, I go out to another festival in Oregon. This one was called Oregon Eclipse Festival. This was celebrating the full eclipse. Again, out in the middle of nowhere situation. I'm walking around this festival. I see the same person who I'd seen in Deep Creek, and we see each other, and we start freaking out.
And had you already connected on Facebook yet at this point?
We had connected on Facebook.
Connected, but you didn't know this person was going to be there.
I didn't know they were going to be there. I didn't know nothing, right?
Yeah.
So it was like that sort of thing happening again and again with different people and different situations where my life started forming based off of these, what you could call synchronicities or amazingly low chance occurrences, coincidences, where I would see the right person in the right time that I vibed with, or I would be exposed to a pamphlet in a random situation, or I would get an email that was accidentally forwarded to me. All these weird things that pushed me forward and that created the life that I'm living right now. And so many elements of my life have just come from this magic. And I guess that's where me and my grandma relate, is that I feel like there's some miracle that's going on. There's some storyline. There's some incredible unfoldment that I'm involved in, that I'm a participant of, that my life is that magical unfoldment, and that each of us has that storyline unfolding in our own unique way. And that we're all merging our stories. We're all coming together and sharing the magic of who we are. And I think if you can catch the wave, if you can recognize it or have that shift in perspective where you're consciously interacting with that magic, you can surf it.
I'm trying, man.
Well,
I'm trying.
It's
surf the magic.
It's accessible. There's no pressure. I feel like even the times where I feel like, oh, I missed a wave or I missed an opportunity, it was exactly where I needed to be.
Sure.
I feel like you can't fuck it up. You really can't ruin your scene no matter how hard you try.
As long as you keep going forward.
As long as you keep moving forward, as long as you just keep your eyes open and don't look back and know that you can be supported. Back to Grandma Sue, like if you can feel supported, then the magic really takes off. If you feel like you're grinding and you might not get through it, and that you have to sacrifice like what you believe you need to do in order to make that ends meet, that's a really tough situation to be in. And I have empathy because I can relate, And at the same time, there's no way that I can relate to the degree in which people feel that pressure on them to survive. There's no way I do not share the experience of deep, inescapable poverty. But I guess it's the optimistic within me that feels that there is always a current, there is a tide, there's always a window of opportunity that if we face forward and keep our eyes open, we can catch it and we can take the chance and we can move into a new earth, a new life.
Yeah.
We can create that reality for ourselves in whatever way it makes sense.
There's something to be said for free will.
Sure.
There's something to be said for that for sure. And what about projects you're working on and things that you've done in LA and some of the challenges and things that have come with that?
Man, I've been all over the place out here. In fact, it's only been recently that I've been a full-time actor, which is pretty much just full-time.
Well, that's full-time. That's awesome.
It's been great.
Full-time awesomeness.
It's full-time awesome. It's been about 6 months.
That's awesome, man, for real.
Thank you. Leading up to that was a big old cluster of things that I thought I wanted to do. So when I first came out here, I was tutoring. I was taking my education background and working with kids. I actually was involved in the creation of a summer camp. So I helped to facilitate this nature camp. We packed a van full of amazing kids and drove them out to the Santa Monica Mountains and hiked and did overnight camping trips.
Nice.
So that was amazing. I dabbled in coaching. I was doing like health coaching, I guess, holistic health coaching, and all these things are beautiful and were lucrative in moments, but something just crashed. It just all sort of fell apart around November. The summer camp didn't work out for me.
Because summer was over.
Summer was over, so summer camp was a no-no.
Yeah.
The coaching was just look, I respect coaches. There's a whole universe of that. There's a whole industry. I just wasn't in that industry in the way that I needed to be to really
successful.
Make a career of it. Because I wasn't fully committed. I didn't really, that wasn't really what I'm out here to do. And I still work with people, but there was a shift that occurred in my life in March where I realized that all this dabbling that I was doing in all these different industries and projects and trying to create an income for myself and make a living, and while still giving myself the freedom to, I've been going to auditions and doing plays and shows and improv since the day I landed, but just never really full-time professionally. And it wasn't until March that I realized that, I was really just trying to get a principal role, and I was never really allowing myself to do background work. And I was never really allowing myself to start at the bottom.
Yeah.
And my willingness to start at the bottom was what gave me full access to the opportunities that are there. And then when I started spending every day on a set with people who are in the industry, being in that vibe too, being in that lifestyle, it changed, my path. It gave me a focus that was single pointed. And it allowed me to really give all of myself to acting, not just all of my inspiration, but all of my time, all of my energy, all of my resources, and I've been about 6 months, getting on set. That's pretty much my focus is, okay, how can I get on set? What ways can that happen?
I think I think you're doing the right thing. I think you're doing the right things, my friend, for sure. It's interesting to hear you, tell me about, having the conversation with your grandma in New York and then driving out here and meeting these people, and then they're becoming your best friends, and how you get into acting. It's all these things are connected, and it's a story, it's a narrative that we're trying to figure out, and that you're trying to figure out and look for meaning in, I'm sure. I don't know if you subscribe to the everything happens for a reason kind of thing, but I think people live, maybe it's not for everyone, but for me, maybe, I think you live a better life, and life is more interesting when you think of it in that way. everything happens for a reason, because then I think you can take, you know, the negative things that come in life and try to look for meaning in them or lessons in them or whatever, the positive in them.
You, if everything happens for a reason, then it's a lot easier to commit to what's happening. If what's happening is meaningless, or you would rather it not happen and you think it shouldn't be happening, then it's much harder to commit. Yeah. It's much harder to give yourself fully to that experience. Like if you meet someone and you go out to dinner with them and you realize that there's just not really a connection, either professionally or romantically, but you believe that everything happens for a reason, and you're in this conversation for a reason, and maybe there's some reason that you are here, that maybe it's something you're meant to say, maybe something you're meant to learn from them, maybe it's just the fact that you're at this restaurant and when you walk out, you see a sign on the road that reminds you of a show that you wanted to see. Whatever that reason is, if you believe that there's a reason, then you're going to be open to it, you're going to find it, and you're going to commit to that experience, and you're going to be present, and you're going to enjoy it.
It's like, you know what it's like? It's almost like trying to approach life the way, at least for me, I try to approach watching really any movie. And especially if it's a movie that, I didn't pick the movie, or it's something I have to watch, or whatever it is. It's not a genre I'm as interested in. But I always do look for at least one thing. And I always seem to find 1, 2, 3 things about a movie that I love, even if I don't love everything about the movie itself. Just watching, how it was shot, or a certain actor's performance, or some of the line, whatever it is, there's always something in it. And just like, life to some degree, other than like the only thing exceptions I could think of is like, obviously tragic things like that. That's a whole nother exception. Luckily I've been able to avoid, that stuff for the most part. I don't know if I think of that stuff as like, everything happens for a reason, that's unfortunate.
It does get sticky there, but I just saw this, like, let's say I believe that my life is a movie, that I'm living in this improvised movie. Like I was telling you. You are
such an actor.
You
are such an actor, my friend.
Let's say
start to finish.
Dude, let's say tragedy just strikes, like, the big one hits. It's a 9.0. LA's decimated, or like I'm walking outside and I just get T-boned by some guy in a pickup truck, or like
knock on wood.
Hey, I'm knocking on the wood. Like let's just say tragedy hits, man. Well, my life's a story. I'm living it out. I'm participating. The script has this in there.
Yeah.
This is happening. This tragedy is a full-on tragedy. It's a tragic moment. Big time. Okay. Well, and it's easy for me to talk in the comfort of this couch about this. It's more of just sort of how I see this.
Yeah, obviously when you're in a situation, you may feel different.
Oh, and you will. And I do.
Yeah.
And for sure. But part of me just can't help but sense that, just like, when you set up a horror scene in a movie, and you set you set up the props, you put the whole set together, you set up the lighting to make it look eerie, you prepare everyone, the actors are in their zone. That whole thing is meant to give you the most of that horror that you're meant to get. It's trying to extract the fullness of that fear out of the audience, right? And so these tragedies, I think, are perfectly designed to give us the experience. Yes, exactly. To give us those experiences that we get in those tragedies, to fully extract it from us, to give us the fullness of that horror. And there's where I guess my grandma speaks to me, and there's just a reason for it. I don't know the reason, and I wouldn't ever dare to go up to someone and tell them that reason. That's not my role. And I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm just here to say, I have a feeling that things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And those reasons are for our growth.
No, I think so. And I think you're not the only, person to feel this way, because like all those books that were in your grandmother's house, or all the movies that you and your siblings would watch, they're filled with stories about people who experienced hardship, some of them tragedies, and were able to, maybe not overcome, but deal with them, live a fruitful life despite whatever they were dealing with. I mean, that's the human condition, and these are the stories that we keep telling over and over again. Is the stories of people overcoming.
Right. Well, the humans are pretty amazing creatures.
Yeah.
And if
we don't give ourselves enough credit.
We don't.
We focus on all the negative things and the war and the fighting and all this stuff, and that stuff's not my fault, by the way, everyone.
No,
I didn't vote for that. I didn't don't support any of that stuff. But
I'm pointing at him.
He's pointing at me right now.
It's his fault.
No, it's pretty amazing some of the things that humans not only have accomplished, but like are able to overcome.
It's true. Well, my friend was recently telling me that KFC has just introduced a fried non-meat version of their chicken tenders. Basically, there's vegan option right at KFC. So, I don't know if this is the most enlightening news in the world, but the fact that KFC has a non-meat vegan option right now, it has to be a trend towards something, because this is not the only example of this type of strange cultural phenomenon that we're seeing, where humans are finding ways to make slight, and it's arguable that that's an improvement, but I guess some people could argue that the less meat that humans produce, not that you have to not eat meat, but that like meat is a big task on the Earth's resources. So like if corporations start developing things that are less of a task on the Earth's resources, you're having a positive growth. You're having an evolution of culture. So like, I just say all this to say that we humans adapt quite naturally to things. And I think we're all reaching a point where it's like, oh, wow, like we actually have to change, and we're sort of facing a wall of doom, and we can jump over the wall. We can dig under it. We can break through it. There are ways that we can adapt to what we're facing.
Yeah, not to get too deep into it, but one of the things that does come up often in conversations I have is the fact that while we do adapt to the world around us to some degree, the technology is always ahead of us socially. Like the way we communicate, the internet, the phones, the way we interact on social media, our mind isn't able to, and our emotions are not able to be on the level enough to handle the technology. So we're always kind of behind in some way. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know what the solution to that is, but it's just going to be growing pains.
Well, I think if I'm relying too much on a piece of technology to help me navigate a city, and that's the only way I navigate the city, then I'm losing touch with a part of my brain that is remembering where I turned, how to get back, where I'm going, capturing everything visually so I can remember. There's a muscle that's not being used. There's a part of my brain that's becoming a little bit handicapped or weaker by not being used. And I think technology is replacing different functions of our brain that are normally used, and now they're becoming, it's just like if you don't walk for 2 years, you're going to have these weak legs. I think we have to find a balance to...
That balance was the word I was going to use myself.
It's really important.
Yeah.
And especially for kids. When I was working with kids, and as I continue to track it, they're spending more and more time on tech.
Yep.
And I think they're part of their emotional muscles, social muscles, things that allow them to normally interact in a world, since they're only interacting digitally with each other in a way, to call it 50 to 70% of their interactions are digital. There's a lot of that muscle that's just not being used.
That's definitely a concern. I feel like while those kids are going to be making 6+ figure salaries coding, they will have perhaps personal problems and interpersonal problems beyond that.
Sure.
But anyway, we may have got a little off course there, but
I'm so glad we did.
No, it's been fun. It's been a trip. It's been a journey. You are such an actor, my friend.
Oh yeah, how? Why am I an actor? What am I doing? Huh?
The way you talk, the way you move, the way you speak. No, I like to stereotype people. They love that.
I'm wearing my fedora.
Yeah, he's not wearing a fedora.
No, I'm not.
It's not true. But okay, so why don't you tell people, where they can follow you, where they can find you, anything else you want to share, and I'll let you get the hell out of here and on with your life.
Well, first of all, thank you.
Oh no, thank you.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I felt like I got to share some things that I haven't really been able to share with many people. So the opportunity to put it on a little broadcast is really exciting to me.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So let's see. You can find me on Instagram, joshua.mesnick. I post a lot of photos from
Mesnik.
That's right, joshua.mesnick, Mesnik. My website's coming online. It'll be on soon, but it'll be the same name, joshuamesnick.com. And, you know, I would leave you with my wish that whatever you're facing, there is a creative solution, and you are already creative. And so you don't have to try as hard to logically maneuver. There might just be a backdoor or a wave or a magical fairy who's hovering above you that is ready to lift you up and take you to the next level. And just be open and just trust that you have what you need to make it happen for yourself. No one can give you what you already have, which is an incredible creative power and potential. And I wish and I hope and I vision for anyone listening, and I pray that you find that and that you create with that in mind and know that you have everything that you need.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. I got one more for you.
Please.
What would you think that your grandmother would think of where you are today? And what would you say to her if you know, what would you want to tell her? If you could tell her anything?
Well, I know she'd be proud of me. She's always proud of me. I don't know if I could ever really screw that up unless, you know, I don't know if she'd approve of,
I think there's reason to be proud, though. I'll say that to you, man. As far as I can see.
Look, you know,
I haven't looked at your rap sheet.
You know, Grandma was she was a tough critic on some things, but when it comes to being proud, it was kind of like I could pretty much be doing anything and she'd be proud of me. So, you know, but I know
that unconditional love is quite something.
It's something else, man. It gives me freedom to do whatever I want. But
cool.
You know, she'd be happy for me. She'd be proud of me. I think if she was here, she would, you know, she would want me to really, being an actor and being in the industry can feel like you have to give up something in order to get something. There's a kind of exchange where it's like, oh, well, I had plans to do this, but I'm gonna give up those plans to go to this audition. Or, oh, you know, I have this agency that I really want, but this agent reached out to me and it feels safe, so I'm going to do that. So there's just this, sometimes there's this trade-off experience in the industry. And I feel like my grandma would be an advocate for holding as sacred and really valuing yourself so that you know that you don't have to give up anything.
Right.
That you know you deserve to hold on to. You don't have to trade who you are and give up that for a role or for a job. You can find the role and the job and the people and the situations that fit who you are, and that's part of the journey. And I think she would speak to that, and she would want me to stay on that track so that when I do land that job, when I do have that agent, when I do have the circumstance that fits me, then I'll be online. Then I'll be creating from a really empowered magnetic space. And so I think she would want that for me.
That's awesome, man. You're doing it the right way. Again, I appreciate your time. It's been fun, and let's talk soon.
Thank you, Adam.
You got it, man. Take care. So there you have it. My conversation with Joshua Mesnik. That was fun. I always enjoy talking to Joshua. We get deep into whatever we're discussing for sure. But for real, I love that dude's enthusiasm for life. And Grandma Sue Smith would be proud of him for sure. Anyway, for everything about this show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com. And I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks as always for the support. And let's talk soon. Peace.